This series of videos is being created to remind the world of the 100-year era between when the Civil War ended and the Civil Rights Movement came to pass. Most of these stories are gruesome, despicable, and horrific, but they need to be told in order for certain critics of present-day political agendas to have an accurate representation of what life was like for blacks after slavery. Too often there's an almost purposeful ignorance, a contempt for those of color, and a stain on the true horrors that African Americans faced daily. A life without justice, a life of oppression, a life without safety. These are their stories. This is the small river between Brooks and Lowndes County in southern Georgia, a small rural stretch of land founded in the year 1858. While the waterway known as Little River seems a peaceful and serene landscape, it was on this very spot that one of the most heinous crimes ever to be committed on American soil took place. This is the spot of the lynching of Mary Turner. In southern Georgia during the early spring of 1918, a white plantation owner by the name of Hampton Smith was found murdered at the age of 25. Immediately drawing an angry crowd, the plantation workers of Hampton's property, also known as Old Joyce Place, were targeted at once. Within the list of 13 suspects was a man named Hayes Turner. Born in 1892, Hazel Hayes Turner was a 19-year-old farm laborer who was married to a young woman named Mary Hattie Graham. Taking her married name of Turner, Mary was 8 months pregnant at the time of Hampton Smith's killing, and the couple knew all too well about the dangers they now faced for simply being black. Within just 3 days of Smith's untimely death, Hayes Turner was one of many who were captured by police and arrested as a suspect. Little did Turner know, but a plantation worker named Sidney Johnson was already being looked at as the main suspect, not Turner. Despite the whimsy of Georgia's judicial system following Smith's murder, Hayes Turner was nonetheless questioned and kept in the county jail for further investigation. That was until the sheriff decided Turner might be more safe from the town's angry mob if he was taken to a neighboring city and held in custody there. County Sheriff Wade, who was accompanied by a court clerk, removed Hayes from his cell and headed towards the town of Quitman. Hayes never made it. At some point, Sheriff Wade stopped the vehicle en route as a mob of 40 white men blocked the road. They snatched the prisoner out of the vehicle, and a handcuffed Turner was led into the woods where he was hung by the neck in a tree. His body stayed there from Saturday to the following Monday, when he was finally cut down, and his corpse was buried no more than 50 feet from the tree where he was murdered. Already distraught over the arrest of her husband while she was inching ever closer to her delivery date, Hayes Turner's wife Mary was traumatized the following day when she learned that her husband had been lynched. Without a doubt, Mary knew that the persons responsible hid their acts behind the shine of a sheriff's badge, and in her despair she publicly announced her pleas for justice to be served. She demanded that those responsible for her 19-year-old husband's brutal murder be charged with their crime, and that they proceed to seek justice in the local county courtroom. When the mob heard of Mary's demands, they sprung into action to hunt the pregnant woman down. Mary simply had no time to escape the clutch of their racist grasp around the neck of the situation. When the mob caught up with Mary, just one single day after the lynching of her own husband, the crowd showed no mercy as they put their deranged plan into action. First, the crowd of white mobsters took her to Folsom Bridge. A tree hung just over the water on the banks, and that was where they decided to throw their rope. They tied the pregnant widow's feet together tightly and began to hoist her off the ground feet first. As Mary Turner dangled from the tree upside down, she began to scream in pain and cried for mercy over the life of her unborn child. The mob would have none of it. They then began throwing buckets of liquid on Mary, which were filled with motor oil and petroleum from the vehicles. With a gas-soaked face and her clothing that was dripping with the flammable combination, a match was lit. As Mary's hair caught fire, she screamed in agony. Her cries fell on deaf ears as a member of the mob approached her writhing in pain. He pulled out a knife, yanked her layered house dress off to expose her abdomen, and with a brutality that is incomprehensible, the man sliced Mary's stomach open with jagged sawing motions, and he removed her infant baby by letting it drop to the ground, where it made 2 small cries. As Mary bled to death hanging upside down from the tree, her first interaction with her baby was watching that same man stomp repeatedly on her infant's head with the heel of his boot, killing it instantly. Within minutes, Mary Turner and her baby were both dead. The mob then cut her down, put the rope around her neck, and hung her lifeless corpse from the same branch of the tree that extended just over the water in front of the bridge. The crowd riddled what was left of the woman with bullets for hours, inflicting hundreds of bullet holes into her body. There, she remained for some time. The only thing marking her grave when she was finally cut down was an empty whiskey bottle with a congratulatory cigar stuffed into the neck. Despite the barbaric lynching of Hayes Turner and his wife and the child within a span of only 24 hours, the killings did not stop there. Over the course of the next week, 13 more individuals were murdered by the mob. Not a single member of the group accused was ever allowed their day in court. Instead, justice was warped to fit within the mold of the systemic racism set forth by themselves, and their lives were snuffed out despite their obvious innocence. The actual shooter died in a shootout with police within a week of the crime. No charges were ever brought to those who committed the lynchings. 100 years have passed since the despicable acts of injustice took place along the banks of Little River. Subsequently, the people of Brooks County, Georgia, have been plagued by the massacre that was instigated all those years ago. With a metal plaque marking the shoreline where Mary and her baby were viciously killed, the stain that this murder left on the community is still visible. In 2013, only 3 years after the plaque was erected, it was found to have 5 bullet holes that penetrated the metal memorial. To this day, it's still unclear who the vandal was. Annually, a crowd will form in honor of Mary, Hayes, and their unnamed infant's memory, ensuring that history does not forget the brutal slayings that the Black community has endured during the Jim Crow era. Although Georgia is certainly not the only state which harbors an endless list of victims lost to the twisted and horrific hands of an angry mob, perhaps there is no other example of our depraved species and the evil we will inflict on one another than that of Mary Turner and her baby.